Hey guys, this is Austin. This is the brand new base iPad, and at $330, it might be the best value Apple product that you can buy. For 2019, the base iPad sees a few upgrades, including some more RAM as well as a slightly larger screen, but for me, there are two major highlights. First of all is the addition of the Smart Connector. Now this is something which has slowly been trickling its way through the iPad lineup over the last few years, and it makes a big difference. As far as I'm concerned, an iPad without a keyboard is a great content consumption device, but if I want to get any real work done, I need a keyboard. And as ludicrously expensive as the Smart Connector keyboard is, it does make a big difference. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Apple's smoking, charging you a $160 price tag for a keyboard for a $330 iPad. I start out this video, I'm like, hey, this is the best value product that Apple sells, look how great it is, and then they charge you the $160 for the keyboard. And I'm like, well, don't worry about that part. So something else that the base iPad still uses is the standard old school Apple Pencil, which means that if you want to charge it, you have to plug it into the lightning port like this. I can't believe they still charge $100 for this. Look, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. The pencil's nice, the keyboard's nice, and when you use them together, the iPad, the base model, really actually does feel surprisingly close to a full iPad Pro. So what I've been doing the last few days is exactly that. This has been my main laptop replacement. And yes, I just said the words iPad and laptop replacement in the same sentence with a completely straight face.
Bullshit.
No, for real. Now yes, I'm sure you're probably rolling your eyes right now at the idea of an iPad, a base iPad no less, being a laptop replacement. But hear me out here. Over the last few days of using this as my main system, I've been surprised at exactly how usable it really is. I'm not saying like, oh, it's usable if you deal with this compromise or that compromise. I mean, like, I've been able to do pretty much everything I need to, including Google Docs and YouTube and keeping up with spreadsheets and everything, which all sounds really boring. But the thing is that this is just as good of an iPad for most situations as the iPad Pro. And it costs like 1/3 the price. A huge part of this comes down to the second major upgrade, and arguably the most important one, iPad OS. Holy shit, this makes it so much better.
Wow.
Dude, it is not even close. So in the past, when I was using the beta of the iPad OS on my iPad Pro, it was pretty solid, but now that the final version is out, and of course that is supported on a wide range of iPads, including the new base model, it makes a world of difference. Probably the #1 feature that I really appreciate in this is a desktop version of Safari. Now, ever since the first iPad Pros came out with the keyboard, I'm like, oh, you know what? I could use this as a laptop. And I've tried, and I've tried, and I've tried. But now that we have a full proper desktop browser, I actually can kind of make it work. Now, yes, there are still some small caveats. Safari is certainly not perfect, but it is so much better than before. Things like Google Docs actually works. So does Gmail. So does, well, 95% of any web apps I've tried unless they need some sort of plugin. Gone are the days of dealing with terrible mobile apps like Drive or Docs, which were just not good. I mean, using the full versions make a huge difference. I mean, literally, look, this is a full Google Doc, wants to load. I can do everything I want, and with the pencil, I can easily select text. I mean, it makes a big difference. Now, there's certainly other advantages. So the Files app has seen a major update, which means that you can now download files on the iPad. You have access to a full file structure, so I can set up folders, move files around. It's getting better to sort of share files between apps. And there is some support for external devices such as USB. Now, it's a little bit more difficult because this is still using Lightning, so you do need to use an adapter or use one of those little USB dongles that has a Lightning port on it. But generally speaking, this has come a long way toward being, honestly, even more useful than something like a Chromebook. Whereas in the past, it was like Windows, Mac, Chrome OS, iPad. But now it's like iPad, Chrome OS. We can make a 3D chart to show that, so as I move my hands, it's all nicely animated.
No, we can't.
Do you have the budget for that?
No.
No, it is certainly not perfect. Even though they've upgraded from 2 to 3 gigs of RAM, I still do run into some issues in Safari where I'll have 5 or 6 tabs open and it will start reloading them in the background, although to be fair, it is fairly fast on that front. And there's some other things like, yes, I wish I did have a little bit more performance. The A10 is decent and it's actually surprisingly usable, but of course having the A12 or the A12X would be a little bit quicker, a little bit more snappy. But generally speaking, all of the things that are major differences between the base iPad and the Pro are nice to have, not need to have. I can get these same things done on this. It's maybe just a touch slower, it's maybe not quite so smooth, you don't have the high refresh rate display or quite as nice of audio, but the general experience is nearly identical, which is incredibly impressive. I mean, we look at a lot of very cheap $200-300 laptops, and honestly, with iPad OS being as good as it is, I think I'm gonna have to stop recommending some of them. I mean, sure, if you specifically need Windows, by all means go for it. But for a lot of people, you're getting a better experience with the iPad, and that's something I've never been able to say before. The better comparison is with the iPad Air, which also came out earlier this year. Now, when you put it side by side with the base iPad, you'll see that the Air is a little bit thinner, but beyond that, they're actually surprisingly similar. So the Air does have a slightly larger 10.5-inch display compared to 10.2-inch on the base iPad, and the laminated glass does look a little bit better. There's no screen gap, unlike that base iPad, but in real world use, I really can't tell a huge difference. They're both very vibrant, they're both very bright, resolutions are nearly the same. Honestly, the Air is it's a decent iPad, it's a good choice, but over $170 more expensive, it's kind of hard to justify. Now, the design has certainly been around for a while, however, there are some good sides to that. Touch ID is, well, still here, not quite as fast as Face ID, but it's fine. And you, of course, do have the headphone jack. Now, camera-wise, well, that's a little bit of a downgrade. This is what the video looks like coming out of the iPad base model. It is the very old school 720p camera, and well, it works for FaceTime, I guess. But not really that well, to be totally honest. It's a little bit of a downgrade. Probably the biggest difference is in the specs. So the base model iPad sticks with the same Apple A10 from last year's iPad, whereas the iPad Air has the A12. But in my few days of using this base iPad, it hasn't really bothered me. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit slower, but beyond that, I mean, it's surprising at how much the iPhone 7 processor can really handle here. Now, this is not blisteringly fast. You know what? It's actually kind of fine even for some gaming. Now, with iPadOS now supporting PS4 and Xbox One controllers, this actually isn't a bad little portable console. So first up, we have Fortnite, and there's actually some interesting things about Fortnite. So not only do we actually have proper resolution scalers, so we can change it to 20, 30, or 60 as our FPS cap, we also can change the resolution, change the quality, and as far as I've tested, this actually looks better and runs smoother than on the Switch.
No, don't kill Austin. No, please don't kill him. No, don't kill him. Don't kill him. Don't kill him.
Ever since the first iPad Pro came out, I've really wanted to use an iPad as my everyday laptop. I mean, between the form factor, which you just can't beat, the all-day battery life, the great screen, and of course there are inherent advantages to going with iOS and things like security and app compatibility, but there's always been something to hold me back. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm ready to throw my laptop in the garbage just yet. There are still cases like editing that I prefer to use a laptop for. However, for the most part, this is really enough to replace most of what I do. And specifically with the $330 base model, it is hard to argue that this is not the best value Apple product that you can buy today. Sure, the higher end iPads are nice, but this really is all you need.